Hey, it's Kley. Hope you guys are doing well. Welcome to another video. This is going to be a demonstration and a little bit of a mini review of a new guitar amp modeling plugin suite. That's what I'm going to call it. It is from a company called Mercurial Audio, and the name of the plugin is Spark. Now, I actually had some awareness of Mercurial Audio before I got involved with Spark. I have used one of their Tube Screamer plugins actually for a long time, and it's an excellent product. Free, simple, easy to use, sounds great. And so I was always really interested in some of the things that they were producing, thinking they were doing a really nice job. Then I was contacted by one of the people at Mercurial Audio asking if I'd be interested in doing a little bit of a test run of their new VST plugin called Spark. And I was, did a little bit of research and made the connection there that I had been familiar with them and was immediately very excited about testing out some of their new stuff. So they sent me just a test copy of this plugin, and just wanted to give you a little bit of a overview and dive into some of its features, as well as give you some tone examples. So the Spark plugin is really a guitar modeling suite. It does a whole variety of things, including amp simulation, effects, speaker cabinet simulation, and a whole lot more. It's just really capable of doing a very diverse number of things for you. Really at its core, the amp modeling is probably the most central and foundational aspect of the plugin, however. And the amp modeling is based on 4 classic British Marshall style circuits. And personally, I really like how they went ahead and set things up. The 4 amp models include the bass 67, the lead 68, the 800, and then the AFD. And each of these circuits really represents kind of the evolution of Marshall and British amplifiers from the early 60s all the way up until the 80s, 90s, and until today. If you look at the first 2, I'm going to talk about them together. The bass 67 and the lead 68 really remind me of kind of a vintage plexi, like a 50-watt JMP style amplifier. And they split it into 2 independent amps, but it really functions very similar to those old plexis where you had your bass channel and then you've got your lead channel, and these 2 amps really function very similarly to that, and definitely very classic vintage voice. The core sound of that old rock and roll tone is definitely there, capable of some nice warm clean tones as well, all the way up till some really pleasing classic rock distortion. Just some really great vintage style amp models there. Then the 800 is kind of the next stage, obviously invoking the JCM 800 type of amplifier. The 800, it gets a little bit more gainy. You're adding an extra preamp stage there. Gets a little bit more compressed, a little bit more singing, and definitely kind of into that 80s, 70s, and 80s rock tone. Then the AFD amp model really reminds me of kind of the Slash Appetite for Destruction era tone amp going on there. So definitely getting more into the modded Marshall territory. There's also a switch on this amp to take you into the number 34. Again, very much reminiscent of the Appetite for Destruction Slash type amp model. I believe he has a signature amp, and this is going to be very similar to that type of sound. Definitely getting a little bit more modern, a little bit more scooped, a little bit more crunchy, and really at the extreme ends, definitely capable of stepping more into some higher gain, heavier metal type territories, really representing kind of the 80s into the 90s and into the 2000s even. So the amps really cover a wide range of tones, and so let's go ahead and hear some clips of each of those amps just to kind of get things started. Now in this first clip, I wanted to show off the first two amp models, the bass 67 and the lead 68. And what I chose to do is, in my DAW, I actually set up 2 tracks and recorded the same exact track, but I set it up exactly like I would a vintage plexi, where the input actually gets jumpered and gets split. So you're running those first two triode stages in parallel. The bright channel and the normal channel are being run together. I just mimicked that exact type of setup. So what this allows me to do is to achieve a tone very, very similar to those old plexis. Some of the magic there is finding that sweet spot between, the bright channel can be a little bit too harsh and too bright, but it has that top end zing to really help you cut through. But then on the flip side, the bass channel has a lot of warm, gooey bottom end, but sometimes it can be too dark. So you kind of get the best of both worlds with this type of a tone. Next up, let's talk about the 800 amp model. The 800 is definitely a rock and roll tone, and just going to go ahead with a straightforward clip. I was immediately impressed by how simple and easy this is to dial in, and just delivers those types of tones without any hassle or fuss, just straight ahead, the sound of rock and roll. And then this last amp model is the AFD, and I'm going to kind of explore a little more of the higher gain types of tones. And definitely, if you're into that modded Marshall type thing, I think this amp model really sounds quite good. Now I just want to touch briefly on the effects section. The plugin has a nice set of effects. It's got a noise gate, it's got a distortion, which would go pre the amp, and it has actually 4 different types of distortion models that you can pick from, tube screamers to higher gain type stuff. It has a chorus circuit, which I think sounds really nice. And it has delay and reverb, which again, both sound really, really nice. And one of the things I was immediately struck by is how easy this plugin is to manage. There aren't a lot of different pages. It's all very simple and very accessible and very easy to dial in some great tones. But on the flip side, it's all thought out very well, and it's all kind of the way that you would want to use these different plugins. A lot of the necessary features and options are there. For example, the delay is capable of syncing with tap tempo, or the reverb gives you some nice control over the tone, and not just a simple one knob reverb. So it does a really nice job of straddling that line between easy to use but also sounding really great. Then the last thing I want to mention and really talk about specifically is the speaker cabinet emulation in this plugin. I think it's really excellent. And in my experience, I've been using amp modeling for heavily for the past 5-6 years now as really the core part of my guitar sound. And in my opinion, speaker cabinet emulation, however you choose to do it, is one of the most crucial and fundamental parts of getting a good tone when you're using a modeling device. And the Spark does a really, really nice job. I actually went ahead and did some comparisons right when I launched it. I'm very, very accustomed with plugins kind of like this to just disabling the stock speaker cabinets because they don't really sound very good. They don't have that same feel or tone that I'm looking for. And I actually use some third-party impulse responses, really cutting-edge technology, stuff that is designed to really accurately mimic a guitar cabinet. The IR technology has really proven itself, I think, to be a very, very effective way of getting the sound of a speaker cabinet. But the plugins, the speaker cabinet modeling in the Spark is actually really impressive, and I didn't feel the need to use my third-party IRs. And so with all my clips, I'm using the stock inbuilt speaker cabinet, and it's a really cool way. It gives you a couple of different speaker choices, which is really huge. But it also gives you 2 mics that you can actually move around in space, which is extremely powerful for shaping the EQ and the feel of your tone. So if you are using this plugin, I'd highly recommend that you spend some time using the speaker emulation tab and really playing around with everything that you can do there, because it really is a very powerful tool to getting things to sound and feel the way you want. So overall, I hope you really enjoyed this example clip review of the Mercuriall Spark plugin. Keep an eye out for it and definitely give it a try if you're able. I've been really impressed with it so far, and I hope you'd feel the same way. So, hope you enjoy. Take care. See you soon.